Okay, can you guys see my screen? Somebody just say something.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let me get our waiting list person added. All right. So, one of the first things I want to talk to you guys about is please make sure if you have any questions to send them to me through the Remind. Now, as far as the class is concerned, right? I'll just put this down here at the bottom, probably easier to deal with. Always make sure to be checking the stream. That's where I'm going to make a lot of announcements. And as always, you will have your due dates up here in the upper left-hand corner. And you can see that you have an assignment due tomorrow. I can click on this and I can see all the assignments. And my view will look a little different than yours since this is a teacher's perspective. I can see the vocab, right? And so for the most part, everyone did a good job, right? They got everything turned in on time because the 19th was yesterday. So 24 of you guys have already turned in the assignment. I've already graded it and returned it to you. And some of you may have noticed that I offered some suggestions. Now, the first week or two, I'm going to be rather gracious. I'm going to offer some suggestions and send it back to you so you can correct it, you can resubmit it, and then I'll grade it again. But as the next couple weeks progress, you need to make sure to have it done in its complete form the first submission. That doesn't mean that if you made a simple mistake here and there that I'm going to take a lot of points away. But some of you guys, left quite a few words blank, or your definitions for the vocabulary words were far too vague and too general. Now, you can see here that 2 people have turned it in. They probably turned it in maybe last night, and I haven't had a chance to grade them. And it looks like that only 2 people maybe didn't turn the assignment in on time. And I will be contacting you shortly. All right, now let's go back to the class. And you can see that every day or every Wednesday when we have our asynchronous learning, I will always make a reminder, kind of trying to guide you through the Wednesday, right, while you're working on your own. So what I want to show you guys or about today is, again, making sure that we're keeping up with our checklist. Let's see what's on our plate for Thursday. Okay, so yesterday, and I think a lot of you guys did in fact do this, you guys looked through the PowerPoint and maybe you watched the lecture videos on YouTube and looked at the note-taking guideline, right? Or the notes are not necessarily something that you need to turn in. It is not a assignment that is for a grade. It's simply there for you to help guide yourself through the notes, through the videos, and through the PowerPoints. You can also use it, if you haven't touched it yet, you can also use it maybe today as a way of giving yourself a self-quiz, right, in preparation for tomorrow's quiz, right? You can see that announcement or reminder right there. And again, another note here about the fact that those notes are not something that you need to turn in. So what do we need to be doing today? Thursday, you guys should be finishing up the PowerPoint, right? And that doesn't just mean that you read through it, right? If I said to read a book, that means something different than if I said study this book, right? Or review this book, right? So you need to be a little bit more analytical while you're reading through those slides, right? Making sure that you understand any of the terms, vocabulary, or concepts that are presented to you. I do have 2 lecture videos on the class YouTube channel, right? And so I'm going to try to break a lot of our videos into separate sections, right? That way it's not just one long 45-minute ramble. You can kind of watch them in chunks. And then you've got your notes to prepare for quizzes, for Friday's quiz. Another thing that you guys need to be thinking about, right, is your article. And your article actually addresses a topic called giant viruses, and this is going to be due on Friday night. So it might allow you to practice applying what you've learned about the 8 characteristics, right? And so it wouldn't hurt you to do it today, right? It actually might help reinforce some of these ideas for tomorrow's quiz. But let's say you're the kind of person that might be feeling overwhelmed right now and just trying to get used to everything. You might want to just focus on preparing for the quiz. You'll take the quiz tomorrow, and then after you've taken the quiz, you can kind of unwind by reading that article and answering the questions. And I'll show you that here in a second. Okay. And let's not forget, tomorrow there is a quiz. Now, y'all's quiz will open tomorrow morning at 12:01 a.m., right? And so 1 minute past midnight tonight, it's now technically Friday, and your quiz will open up, and your quiz will be open for about 24 hours. So it'll close Friday at 11:59 p.m. Now, because the quiz is open for 24 hours, I kind of have a no excuse policy, right? You need to make sure to complete the quiz within that 24-hour period. Now, if for whatever reason, maybe technical problems with your internet, or family problems that you think might interfere with you taking that quiz, I need to know as soon as possible. Do not send me a message, on Sunday saying, "Hey, Collins, I couldn't take the quiz on Friday." Okay. You need to be a little bit more proactive. And let me make sure to add this individual to our meeting. If you're just joining the meeting, if you please type in your last and first name into the chat box. Okay. And then you can also see what we might want to accomplish tomorrow, that being Friday. Okay. So let's go back to our assignments. Okay. One of the things that you guys need to be focusing on today is this PowerPoint right here. Okay. The first PowerPoint, Intro to Biology. It covers the 8 characteristics of life, and will have you prepared for tomorrow's quiz. Again, I've included 2 videos, right? And some of you guys who have taken my AP Environmental Science class, or maybe you're just already familiar with these 2 terms, maybe from Mr. Francis's Earth and Environmental class, biotic and abiotic. If you're already very familiar with that, you can just skip that video entirely and jump right into the main course, the 8 characteristics of life. Now, for those of you guys who have not yet looked at this, I'm going to pull this up, right? And I'm just going to quickly talk through this as a way of kind of reviewing for tomorrow's quiz, right? And so obviously biology will be the study of life, but then that brings into question, what exactly is life, okay? And that draws us into our conversation about the 8 characteristics, right? And so once we're able to define something as living or non-living, we can categorize them as living or biotic, or non-living, abiotic. What would be some good examples of biotic? Well, all of our examples that would be considered live need to meet those 8 characteristics. Humans would be a good example, and humans are technically mammals, and all mammals are animals, right? So you can keep it really simple. You could say animals, plants, fungi, protists, bacteria, and archaea, right? That would be a really general list of things that would be considered alive. Now, what would be considered not alive or abiotic would be our environmental conditions: temperature, pH, sunlight, wind speed, humidity, so on and so forth. Other things that are abiotic would also be minerals and nutrients, right? Now, although carbohydrates, and lipids and proteins, we'll talk more about that later, they're all very involved in living things. They themselves are not alive. A lot of students get tripped up with DNA. They think that DNA is alive or would be considered alive. But DNA itself is simply a molecule that is used and utilized by living systems. Now let's quickly talk about these 8 characteristics, right? And you can kind of notice that I left these boxes rather blank or general, right? And that's because, I want you to be able to write the notes and take the notes however you see fit. You could put sentences in here, bullet lists, or maybe even just draw something, if I printed this out, I'd probably draw, right? So cells, I'd write basic unit of life, right? And then I'd write uni, and then I draw a single little cell, and I'd write multi, and then maybe I'd draw a human being, right? So unicellular, right? Some organisms are just simply one cell. Multicellular, such as ourselves, we have lots of cells. And then I'd also might write something like prokaryote versus eukaryote, right? Just kind of setting yourself up for a lot of success later on in the semester. Metabolism, right? Maybe you would write sum of all chemical reactions in the cell or body, right? And that can include something like photosynthesis and cellular respiration if we were talking about plants. Growth and development, make sure to be able to separate these 2 if necessary, okay? They are not one and the same, right? Growth is typically an increase in cell size or the number of cells, whereas development would be physiological changes or changes in shape, specialization, cell differentiation, right? Maturation. All of those terms could apply. DNA, this is the universal genetic code. And one thing that you need to know is that all living things have DNA. And the DNA in a bacteria, the DNA in a fungus, and the DNA in ourselves has the same basic structure, follows the same coding system. Now, there would be slight variations in the actual code itself, but all living things have DNA. Another interesting thing to start wrapping your mind around is all of my cells, all trillion of them, trillion plus actually, would have the same exact copy of DNA, right? They all are busy working with the same instruction manual. Doesn't matter if it's my muscle cell, my brain cell, or my skin cell, they all have the same molecule of DNA, right? They're just using different genes, and we'll talk more about that later. Make sure to understand response and stimulus, right? So, if I clap my hands really loud, it kind of makes your eyes quickly blink, or you might flinch or pull back. The stimulus there was the clap and maybe my motion of my hand going quickly at your screen, and you responded with a movement, right? And the reason that we respond to stimulus is because we are trying to maintain homeostasis, right? And homeostasis just means balance, whether it's internal or external. I think of home, right? You can kind of see HOME. I think my home is comfortable, right? I'm always trying to keep my home comfortable, right? So I can be relaxed, right? And I'm at peace. And our bodies are the same way, right? And so, when you exercise, you sweat, and the sweat helps you cool off so that you can maintain homeostasis and stay nice and comfortable. Reproduction, you need to know that there's two different types, sexual and asexual. If you really want to keep it simple, you just think sexual takes two to tango. Asexual is simply one cell or one organism, making a copy of itself. I can't remember who it was, but somebody actually, made me laugh when they were writing their definition of asexual. They wrote, like a copy machine, the cell makes an identical copy of itself. And that's a great way to think about it, right? Because it would be identical. In sexual reproduction, taking two to tango, we tend to think of like two completely separate organisms, right? Like a male mammal and a female mammal reproducing together. But it gets a little weird, especially with plants, because plants can actually, a single plant, like a flower, could undergo sexual reproduction with itself, right? But again, it's just the fusion of the two gametes. Organization, right? If you think about our bodies, they're highly organized into organ systems, and each of those organ systems involves multiple organs working together, and those organs involve multiple tissues, right? And each of those tissue types are made up of highly specialized cells, right? And so they're all working in kind of unison or in a collaborative effort to keep the organism alive, right? And we could even go further down. We start talking about what's inside of the cell. Everything's organized in there as well. And then adaptation. Remember, adaptation and evolution take place in populations, not necessarily in an individual organism, right? And this is just kind of how populations change over time to better fit their environment, right? And you've probably heard terms like survival of the fittest and natural selection. We'll talk more about that later. But a good example of an adaptation would be the clear hairs that polar bears have, right? They're not actually white, they're clear, all right? Think about it. Glass is clear, but if you have thick enough glass, it becomes white, right? Whoa. Same with ice, right? Ice is clear, but as the ice becomes thicker, it eventually takes on that kind of white appearance. Well, the polar bear has those clear hairs as a result of a mutation, right? Lacked pigment in the hair, but over time, the individual bears with that clear pigmentation in their hairs were more camouflaged for a snowy, icy environment and more likely to capture prey. And over time, they were more successful because of their natural camouflage, and they're more likely to survive and have offspring and pass that gene for that clear pigment mutation to their offspring. And then again, just another opportunity to maybe list some examples. And then if you have not already, this would be a great video, really short, less than 8 minutes long, to watch maybe tomorrow right before you take the quiz, just as a quick refresher. And it might be nice to hear someone else talk about the characteristics of life. Now, some of you might be so far ahead, and some of you guys may have been studying already and you feel really comfortable and you want to make sure that Friday is really easy and simple. You may want to go ahead and take a look at the article, right? And I can see that, 4 people have already turned it in. I've already graded one of them. These articles are going to be very short, right? Or fairly short. So I have a link here that you can follow that'll take you to the article. If for whatever reason the link does not work, simply copy and paste this title, right, into Google search and it'll bring it up for you. Now, these articles are only for the honors students. And you'll see that there's some questions, and you can type your answers right here, or you can write these answers down on a piece of notebook paper that you would need to either scan or take a picture of to submit into your Google Classroom. Okay. Um, Now, preferably, I would like for you to answer these questions with complete sentences rather than just a simple yes or no response, right? If it is, prompting you for a yes or no, always, always, always include a reason why, right? Or your defense, right? Because in science, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're right or wrong. You need to be able to defend your conclusion with data, observation, and maybe experimental evidence. Now, a couple people have asked me, if I do my work on paper and pencil and I want to take a picture of it, how should I, or what is the best way to submit it, right? Well, if you go to, because your view is going to be a little different, right? When you go to your assignment, right, under the classwork, right, you can see it's kind of numbered here for you, and you click on the work, you click on view assignment, right? Or if you're using your cell phone, it would look like this. It'll bring up this screen. You'll see, the title of the assignment, the instructions, and maybe the attachments that I've provided, maybe in this case, the article or the vocab. And when you go to submit it, right, there should be a box up there that says add or create. And you can add pictures and graphs and whatever it is that you need by using this button right here. And then if it's from your phone, right, you can take it right from here, pick photo, and it'll go to your camera roll or your gallery, or you can click use camera and take the picture right then and there. And that will actually upload that picture right here into your Google Classroom so that when you turn in the assignment, not only will I see that you in fact did not use the electronic copy, I'll have your digital photographs right there for review. And then I will submit the grade and the assignment in the same way as if you had actually used the electronic document. So you always have that as an option for your work to submit them, in handwritten form, but just through a photograph. Now, I'm not all that familiar with iPhones, but I'm pretty sure that through the note-taking function, there's a really easy way to take pictures and to actually scan things as PDFs. A simple JPEG or any photograph file that your phone uses can also, can easily be uploaded into the Google Classroom. And let me make sure that I'm touching base with everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Yeah, so I think, hold on, let me stop sharing. And